Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. It is my pleasure to welcome you and thank you all for joining us this morning for the public flagship lecture on communities and universities sharing the journey to shape the future. For us in the ENLIGHT team, it's been an exciting week with a number of stimulating and thought-provoking discussions and seminars among the 9 university partners. For today's flagship lecture, we have with us the Rector of Uppsala University, Professor Hagfeldt, and the President of the National University of Ireland, Professor hÓgartaigh. To ENLIGHT universities, regional partners, city partners are very important to learn about their visions and their activities to identify where ENLIGHT university students and staff can collaborate with them to develop solutions to the challenges. And for that particular reason, in today's session, we are really delighted that we are joined by 4 distinguished panel speakers who represent 4 of the cities, regions in the ENLIGHT consortium to share their visions and their activities. But before we kick off today's flagship event, I just want to share a very brief overview of ENLIGHT because some of you may not know much about ENLIGHT. So let me just go and figure out how do I share my screen. Okay, so I hope you can all see my screen. This is today's topic. But for those of you who may not know what ENLIGHT is about, it's a European university network to promote equitable quality of life, sustainability, and global engagement through higher education transformation, shaping our future cities and communities through partnerships. And that emphasis on partnership is very important because really universities don't live in silos. They are part of communities and regions, and we need to work together to identify challenges and find solutions. I'm just going to go see how do I go to the next slide. ENLIGHT has 9 partners, as you can see here, ranging all over from Tartu to the easternmost to Galway on the westernmost, and a very good spread of universities. And this particular section of ENLIGHT work is being co-led by Uppsala University and the National University of Ireland, Galway. ENLIGHT universities, as I mentioned, there are 9 universities, over 300,000 students, and several million residents in the catchment area. And the mission of ENLIGHT is to undertake a fundamental transformation of European higher education by empowering learners as globally engaged citizens with state-of-the-art knowledge, skills, and innovation potential to tackle the major societal transition and to promote equitable quality of life and sustainability, which, as you would all agree, is very important for the future of our society. And within ENLIGHT, the consortium has chosen 5 areas to focus on and work with the regions and communities to identify challenges and solutions through students and partnerships. And these 5 areas are in front of you: health and well-being, digital revolution, impact of digitalization, climate change, energy, and circular economy and equity. The vision is very ambitious. It's to provide access to courses across 9 leading universities for lifelong learning opportunity to students, digitally interconnected campuses to share the best practices we have, engaging regional partners like yourselves and universities to address complex societal issues, work with peers across the network, building culture and language literacy, which is very important, and creating globally engaged citizens. So with that, I really welcome you all. And I would like to welcome Professor Anders Hagfeldt to welcome on behalf of Uppsala University. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lokesh Joshi. It's a big pleasure for me. I hope you can hear me. It's okay, good. I've been Vice Chancellor at Uppsala University since 1st of January, so I'm still in the learning curve. And one of the very exciting things is, of course, to be part of the European community, and in particular the ENLIGHT project, which I find very interesting. And I think also we have had excellent kickoff meeting during this week with very interesting roundtable discussions and student representations and and a lot of activity. So it's of course, then also a pleasure for me to welcome you to this session, dealing with something I think is tremendously important for us. That is to collaborate not only between the universities but also with the local communes and the region. I think that's a key thing for success when we are taking on the very challenging questions we have today. Uppsala has a long tradition of integrating university with the commune and the region. We have academic hospitals, and you will hear much more about that from Christian Dahlmann, who will talk on these aspects. We have also a very interesting and very successful innovation center. I just learned that in one of the ranking, it came out as top 5 in the world, actually, as an innovation hub. So I think that's a very good starting point, but it's still, of course, not enough. We have also to bring our local and regional aspects of where we are together with other partners. And if we really should take on all the demands we have from the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals, we do have to do that together. And it's not enough to do it in let's say, one city or region. I don't think it's enough to do it in one country, but I do think we have a very good chance to do it within Europe. And I think ENLIGHT is a very promising and interesting aspect of that, with the 9 universities and integrating what we are doing. One final word is, I think it's also very important that we do that in equal partnership. We have to find win-win situation where all partners can see what they can benefit from, and they can bring their expertise and together make the whole larger than the sum of the individual components, so to speak. So with that, I'm very happy to be part of this journey to shape the future, and welcome also to this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Hagfeldt. Very important words and advice. Really appreciate your time. And now I'd like to invite Professor Ciarán hÓgartaigh, President of NUI Galway, to welcome on behalf of the university.
Thank you, Lokesh, and thank you to colleagues for joining us this morning. A very important event as part of a broader kick-off week for the ENLIGHT consortium, particularly important for us in Galway as part of the development of our international partnerships, which we feel are both strategic and deep. So in the sense that they have large problems to solve, and that we solve them together. And I think this is a very important part of that, working with our communities and our regions more generally. And looking at the theme of today, particularly pleased that it fits very nicely with the values of NUI Galway in the context of our strategic plan. Values of respect, including for each other, for differing perspectives, differing views of the world, excellence and high standards, and particularly in the context of the partnership, I think we're very pleased to join at the ENLIGHT consortium with such excellent partners across Europe, and such expectations of high standards. So I was at a meeting yesterday of the Rectors, and a very strong commitment to excellence and to doing everything we do with the highest of standards. And I think that together, I think is a sense of our ambition, working together as the ENLIGHT consortium. The third value we have is sustainability, and again, the very important part of our collective goals, collective efforts, and also not only sustaining our planet, but sustaining the next generation of our students and of our research. And I think, again, in the context of this consortium, this is particular a role to play in that regard. And the fourth value, I think the most obvious in this case, is the one of openness. This sense that as a university and as a consortium of universities, we are open to working together, open to new ideas, opening to working across different regions in order to improve both the contribution of the university to society, but also to the economy more generally, improving the contribution of the university to citizenship, which I think in the context of the European ideal is particularly important. This, I think, a consortium such as this, bringing together universities such as ours, is very much part of the European ideal, the European movement, the European mission, and we're very pleased to be part of that. Secondly, thinking about the today's theme and the sense of communities, I think there's a real opportunity for universities to contribute even more to their communities. If there are strengths and advantages and values in the community, a university can contribute to those. Can link with their communities in order to make those values, those strengths even stronger, can increase the talent pool for the region, which in itself then adds back and recreates in a virtuous circle the strengths of the region again. Can increase research in the region, which again in a virtuous circle increases the strength of the region again. So there are particular synergies between universities and their communities, which I think today's panel particularly embraces and enriches. And I'm particularly pleased, for example, to welcome Tomás Síocháin from the Western Development Commission, who was part of the NUI Galway community more centrally, but is still very much part of our community, that we work together with organisations such as his and people such as him in order to create that virtuous circle. And thirdly, I think I'm interested to see that communities is in plural here in this particular seminar, this particular theme. And I think that's a particularly important part of recognising the diversity of our communities, first of all, but also the geographical nature of the consortium, in that if we are universities plural, we're also communities plural. And in Galway, we've always felt that with that sense of openness to the world, that although sometimes we feel like we're not necessarily in the westernmost edge of Europe, but certainly the western edge of Europe, that we are on the edge of things. But no doubt we are also in the centre. And there are stories, and I'd say there are stories of Christopher Columbus visiting Galway prior to his exploration across the Atlantic. But there is evidence that, from my colleagues in history, that there was at least one member of the Galway community on the Columbus voyage. And I think that sense of exploration, with all its challenges, with all its downsides, with all its problematic nature, that sense of exploration, I think, is something very important in the context of universities more generally, that we look beyond the horizon for problems that are there, and we look beyond the horizon, but also together in our own region for the solutions to those problems. So all great adventurers, all great researchers, all great explorers look beyond the horizon, but they all, in doing their best, in being their best selves, work together in order to solve the problems that they find there. That has not always been the case, obviously, with exploration to our disadvantage, but the best exploration is one that works together. And I'll finish on something similar in the context of Galway's position in the world. When JFK visited here in 1963, John F. Kennedy, he gave an oration to a very enthusiastic crowd in Eyre Square in the centre of town. And he said at that time that if the weather was clear enough and your eyesight was good enough, you could see Boston. And obviously that was an oratorical exaggeration that JFK was very good at. But I think it gave the sense also of not only being on the edge, but also being in the centre. And the consortium ENLIGHT and working with others puts NUI Galway as a university at the centre. And as we explore together from the edge, we also look forward to being in the centre of a very exciting consortium and working with our communities, plural, in developing relationships, not only in the region, but beyond this region, in order to support our students, our society, and our planet for the public good. So, go míle maith agah, tá mé an hosta bhein seo, agus tá bronar amach meid sibh an anbheith ngáilíomh fá láthair, ach tá mí de súg meid sibh an seo amach an seo. So we look forward to welcoming you to Galway, if not today, some other day. And there's a phrase in Irish, Beg Lyle Eg Abwerach, there'll be another day, and we hope to welcome you to Galway in that context. So, go míle maith agah, and I wish you all the very best on the voyage ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ciarán, for those really important words. I want to thank both the President, hÓgartaigh, and Rector Hagfeldt. And it's really interesting to see that the activities in ENLIGHT, really how they align with the activities of the both universities and also the values of the universities. And it's not just the two universities, the 9 universities together, as it was mentioned. But I think also just to say that ENLIGHT itself is an adventure as well. And adventures are successful when people go together. So we'll make sure that we stay together as a community. But I also hope that the presidents of the universities, rectors of universities can also meet in person. I think that will also lead to further energy and synergy between the universities and the communities. So with that, I want to thank both of you for your time. I know that you had to step out of the meetings. You're welcome to stay. I hope you can stay, but really thank you for your time. I guess the next part of today's flagship lecture is to welcome our 4 panel speakers, really distinguished speakers. We've spoken with them before, and some really incredible work that's going on, very exciting and insightful. And I'm really delighted, first of all, to welcome Mr. Tomás Síocháin. He's the CEO of Ireland's Western Development Commission. Tomás and the agency Tomás works with, Western Development Commission, is the regional development and investment agency that supports communities to grow, businesses to scale, and is planning for the future of Ireland's Atlantic coastal region of the communities. Tomás, as the president mentioned, was a colleague in the university. Now he's a colleague outside the university where we work together. He's a journalist by training and worked with the national broadcaster RTE and TG4 between 1998 to 2013. He's a law graduate with a high diploma in applied communications and an MBA, and is a non-executive director of Grow Remote and Future Mobility Campus Ireland. Tomás, welcome.
Thank you, Lokesh. And good morning, everybody. And tá fáilte roimh, if I would like to echo what the President, Ciarán hÓgartaigh, said, and welcome you virtually to Galway and to the West Coast. I hope you can see my screen, because what I'm showing you there is a view just to the south of Galway, which is along the Atlantic coast, and it's the county of Clare, as it happens, where I am from. But it just gives you a sense and echoes very much the conversation and the remarks that the President made about our position, not very much on the edge of Europe, but on the halfway point between Europe and the US, and very much, I think, in the context of all that's happening with the current pandemic, opening our eyes to the capacity for technology to bring us closer to others in Europe. So just before I begin, the one thing I would like to touch on is that our vision for communities in the region is very much driven by creating the situation in a sustainable manner where people have the freedom to choose. That allows them to choose to remain in their own area. It allows them, as partners with our partners in Europe, to travel across Europe, to learn, to gain experience, and yet to return. And I think that is the most important narrative that we can share today, is that nobody is forced to leave the place that they grow up, that they may travel, that they may learn, that they may experience other cultures and other countries, but that they always have the freedom to return. And when they do, that they have the freedom to live their life or follow the career of their choice. And that's very much what drives us, is to ensure that those communities are available to people, that those opportunities are available. And that's what I would like to bring you to very briefly this morning, to give you a sense of the work that we do. So bear with me now, and I'll move on to the next slide. So just to give you a sense of the region that we live in. So you're looking at a map of Ireland, and if you look at Ireland's Atlantic coast, as an agency, the Western Development Commission is responsible for these counties and for leading social and economic development in these counties. And just to highlight, I think, and to reflect the importance of the university, I think this goes to the heart of the discussion this morning. You can see the NUI Galway logo there. NUI Galway is situated within Galway, or Galway in Irish, which is effectively the capital of our region. And that's why it's very important to see that the university not only plays a role on the global stage, but also on the local stage and on the regional stage, in a very important role. To give you a sense of the other towns within our region that really are not at similar size, but just emphasizes the size of and role of Galway. To the north, you have Letterkenny or Letterkenny, which is a population of just under 20,000 people. To the south of that, Sligo, which is 20,000 people. And just south of Galway, where we are at the moment, is Ennis, or Inishcune and Clár, which is just over 25,000 people. So if you look to the right of the screen, Ireland's western region has 37% of the land of Ireland. So if you take the the land across all of the Republic of Ireland, but only 17% of the population. So at the last census, just over 800,000 people. So that gives you a sense of the dispersed communities that we work with. And in doing so, it gives you some sense of the challenges that we face. So, the Western Development Commission, who are we? A state development agency established over 20 years ago. And if you look to the left of the screen, you can see our More to Life campaign, which we launched over the last year, and which really establishes the emphasis from our point of view on the beautiful place that we live and the opportunity to improve your work-life balance. And that's one of the key drivers for us. So we talk about growth, but we talk about sustainable growth. So growing our region, not for the sake of growing in itself, but to create better opportunities. And as I spoke about, that freedom to choose where you work and the way you work. We also have, if you look to the bottom, an investment and lending portfolio, an investment fund, as Lokesh mentioned, that has a value of over 75 million euro. And over the last 20 years, we have helped over 200 SMEs in particular to go from startup, bringing ideas and bringing them to life and creating opportunities for people in doing that. We also work a lot with communities. So we lend to communities to allow them to help themselves. I've mentioned analysis and an inform, and that's very important. So we have a policy analysis team that help to inform our national government about the issues that the region faces. Not to do so to advocate without reason, but to do so on the basis of evidence. And again, and I'll take you through some of the work we've done with the university, that's where there's a clear opportunity to make evidence-based decisions that allow people to make the best choices and to do so in the long term. Because as an organization, the benefit that the Western Development Commission has is being able to look into the future and make decisions in the long term. And as you all know, very often decisions are driven by the budget at the end of this year or perhaps the political cycle, and we pride ourselves on taking the long-term view. So I'm going to draw your attention to the right of the screen because this is something that I think provides a particular opportunity in the context of what we're talking about today. I make reference to the AEC, or Atlantic Economic Corridor, hubs network. So if you see those blue dots on the map, we have over 114 hubs. And these are locations in both towns and in rural areas where people can work remotely, where people can find office space that they can establish their business, and where people can access supports. And this is something that has grown organically, but that we are very much supporting, and that now that pilot which we had trialed in the west of Ireland is being rolled out nationally. So over the coming year, we will increase the number of hubs that we manage, that network, from 114 to somewhere in the region of 450. And I think in the context of what we're talking about today, that provides a great opportunity. I just wanted to touch on one aspect of ENLIGHT because I was very interested, and I want to thank Lokesh for inviting me to join you today, and Pamela and our other colleagues in NUI Galway for informing me about ENLIGHT. I think if I was to identify one thing, it's the opportunity to think global and act local. And that really caught my eye because I think that's a very, very interesting concept. So I have framed a number of scenarios in the context of the challenge and opportunity presented. And I'm very much of the view that this is a positive approach that we take, not to be dwarfed by the challenges we face, but to identify how those challenges can help us to improve. So to look at challenge and opportunity, as you can see on the left of the screen, I've identified some of the challenges we face. These are for context. So we look to develop balanced regional development. Ireland as a country has a huge amount of development on its eastern coast in Dublin near the capital city. We're eager to balance that development and do it in a sustainable way. As I outlined, we deal with a rural and dispersed population. We have over 95% of the enterprises in the Western region are micro enterprises, so they employ less than 10 people. So that gives you both a huge number of enterprises to engage with, but also identify some of the challenges around digitalization and how to engage people with the work that we do. We have, perhaps highlighted by the pandemic, a reliance on traditional sectors. So tourism is a huge driver, and some of the work and analysis that we've done has identified that the COVID pandemic has disproportionately impacted on our region, on those that work in the tourism sector, on those that work in retail, and in particular on young women, because they're very often involved in those sectors and also now find themselves carrying the burden of both being in a position where they have to spend more time at home. So we're very conscious of working with that group in particular and to create opportunities, both equality and to create opportunities for progress for young women in that position. On the flip side, I think, as I highlighted the beauty of our region, we also have some very, very notable strengths that I want to highlight. Galway is one of 5 global medtech centres and a driver, and at a global level, a clear competitor in the global medtech industry. I've mentioned the Wild Atlantic Wave, which draws many visitors to Ireland's west coast, and also an emerging opportunity in the offshore wind potential of our region. So there is a significant, as well as challenges, there are significant opportunities. Then I see us working through the platform of the hub network, and I'm very taken by the idea of a living lab. And I'd be very interested to hear from partners their experience of the living lab. We're beginning that journey. So what are the opportunities? And as I mentioned at the outset, how do we do so taking the long-term view? Some work that we're doing at the moment, and this is in draft form, we haven't published this, but I'm happy to share it with you. If you look to the image on the left, this shows you the number of jobs that were supported by our inward development agency, so the Industrial Development Agency, which supports multinationals. So you can see again, everything is anchored around Galway and around the university, and there's a huge amount of activity there. And my role as the CEO and for the Western Development Commission is to spread that support, so to spread that growth. So you can see clearly to the north and west that less is happening. So we're keen to expand that and regionalize it. If you look to the next slide, you see medtech and life sciences, and this emphasizes the medtech industry that's of huge strength in Galway and in the region, and that's a key driver for us. But it's something that we're not complacent about, and we need to work on it and ensure that it is fit for purpose for the future. That's the existing key sector and the strength, and then the emerging sector. And this very much fits with our strategic plan, which is to identify areas of sustainable enterprise. Only a small number, because we're keen to ensure that we have impact. So we're very focused. And we see in the context of AI, big data and analytics, that there is an emerging competence in the region. And I'll take you through some further detail on that. So to look at the ENLIGHT themes and to take 2 scenarios. The first scenario I'm going to look at is theme number 2, the digital revolution and impact of digitalization. And what I'll step you through here is a model that has grown organically over the last year that may be of use in terms of how we can use models elsewhere. So as the President mentioned and as Lokesh mentioned, we worked with NUI Galway over the last year to do some research. We led the National Remote Work Survey, and you can understand in the context of the pandemic, there was a huge shift to remote working. And you can see there some of the issues that we found. So that there was a huge eagerness to continue to work remotely, that there was an eagerness to move away from the capital city and move to the west, and then the identified benefits. Some of the challenges that arose, we believe we can answer through the use of our hub network. So in creating local hubs where people can come together, avoid the long distance commute, they can address the challenges of remote working in terms of isolation, the lack of motivation, and having an appropriate workspace. We see these as economic drivers. We see them as a center-based activity that will allow people to develop their own community and to help with placemaking. And then we see ultimately that one of the challenges in a rurally dispersed region or with a dispersed population is the absence of critical mass. So there is a huge opportunity through collaboration through all these hubs, through that network, to create critical mass for both labour market activation, diversification, and education outreach, which I think is a particular opportunity. I'm conscious of time and that we have other speakers, so I'm going to move quickly to the 1 or 2 other scenarios that I have. Climate change in light theme number 3. Again, as I outlined, this is both a challenge and opportunity. There is a huge opportunity off the west coast of Ireland to develop renewable energy through offshore wind, and it is a significant opportunity in the long term, but from our point of view, we need to begin to plan for it now. The challenge again in a region such as ours is how to do that at scale. And we see that the solution to that is through collaboration, both with national partners and with international partners. What is interesting is in our region, and this is very often the case with rural regions, and certainly in Western Europe, is that a lot of the the power that's used by other parts of the community is generated in rural areas. So we in the region generate 120% of the electricity we need from renewable generation. So we are actually overproducing in the context of meeting our sustainable development goals. And the other issue I want to highlight, and again, where I think there's an opportunity, is 65% of our population live in rural areas with very limited access to transport. And in the transition to a low carbon economy, based on the work that we have done over the last year, that is going to be a significant challenge. The opportunity is around our emerging regional competency in smart mobility. We have identified that based on a regional competence in mobility and sensors, that we are very well placed to address some of these challenges. And in doing so, to begin to look to develop a living lab for smart rural mobility. So to turn around what I started with in terms of challenge and opportunity and expand on the opportunities, as I outlined, the context is a rural dispersed population, the challenge of engaging with SMEs, and perhaps a reliance on one or two traditional sectors. Using our network of hubs and moving into the opportunity to develop living labs, we see them as a clear opportunity to address societal challenges for local benefit and to share the learning, for flexible learning paths for upskilling and lifelong learning, for structured citizen engagement and awareness. And I think that's a key issue for projects like ENLIGHT, raising awareness of both the work that is being done through this program and the work of universities more generally, and to develop resilient sectors, to improve on the work-life balance and to develop sustainable enterprise in the long term. So, Gurab Mahagav, thank you for your time this morning and thank you for the opportunity to discuss these issues with you. I'll hand back to you, Lokesh.
Thank you, Tomás. That's really exciting. It's great to see the activities that you're engaged with. And even people here sometimes lose sight of the large area that your agency covers. So it's 37% of the country is a massive area. Thanks for sharing your ideas. I appreciate that very much. Now, if I may invite Madam Céline Papin, Deputy Mayor in charge of Territorial, European and International Cooperation at Bordeaux City Hall. Madam Papin is the newly elected Deputy Mayor of Bordeaux in charge of territorial cohesion, international European relations, and Vice President of Bordeaux Metropole. Having obtained a Master's in Political Science and a Master in Environmental Policies, she has been working as a political advisor and cabinet staff member for the local elected representatives of the Ecologist Party during the last 12 years before joining the new Municipal Council of Bordeaux in July 2020. Madam Papin, welcome. We look forward to hearing you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It is with a real pleasure that I'm joining this session today. I hope you will apologize my French accent after such good English speakers. The recent actuality with the COVID crisis has demonstrated how important it is to collaborate between different stakeholders to face crisis. It has been also a concrete example of the importance of the European cooperation for taking up new challenges that may weaken our societies. It comes to all of us in the diversity of our responsibilities to shape a future that may be full of opportunities and not threaten our social, economic, and environmental ambitions. The logic behind the ENLIGHT project is completely in line with this target. And that's why I'm very happy that our territory, represented by the University of Bordeaux, takes part to this ambitious project. As a newly elected Deputy Mayor of Bordeaux and Vice President of Bordeaux Metropole, I will focus my speech on how local public institutions and universities may collaborate in an even closer way. By creating favorable conditions for the development of higher education in our metropole, and thanks to the dynamism of local universities and research centers, we now welcome more than 100,000 students per year, many international careers and many partnerships. Bordeaux has become an international university city, and we are proud of it and completely committed to encouraging it. Thanks to new competencies transferred in France to metropoles in the last 10 years, and in the framework of a local strategy about higher education and research approved in 2015, many actions have already been implemented, following 3 guidelines: promoting higher education and research as a territorial development lever, creating a quality environment beneficial for research, educational and innovation activities, enable production and diffusion of knowledge in all our territory. As an example of our current collaboration with the University of Bordeaux, I would like to share with you our cooperation with an interdisciplinary research center, the Urban Forum, which aims at creating bridges between the university world and professionals on urban and territorial issues. This original structure is not only adding transversality inside the university itself, but also making researchers go out of their laboratories and work on very pragmatic subjects with the local professionals in urban policies. By organizing regular meetings, developing tutored projects, publishing knowledge on urban evolutions, the Urban Forum manages to combine two ambitions: anchor research in the reality of those who make and live the city, local authorities, professionals, associations, citizens, and shed light on contemporary issues in order to seek improvements in public policies. Among its activities, the Urban Forum leads a research program which aims at observing the evolution of metropoles and the way they deal with their interland. The program is named Popsu. This is a project local authorities are very interested in, as its orientations join our current worries. How to cooperate with our neighbor territories in terms of resources. We are currently facing important challenges in terms of waste management, water supply, food governance, and energy autonomy, for example, which impact real estate inflation as on spatial evolutions and local strategies, as more and more people are settling in the surroundings, despite a concentration of economic activities in the metropole, which generates many impacts on the car traffic and difficulties also in the access to higher education, for example. How the metropole is seen by popular social categories as it's getting more and more difficult for them to live inside the metropole. Those orientations echo our concern for more equity between people and between territories. How couldn't we be aware, for example, of the increasing gap between elected representatives and the citizens, and the democratic challenge that arises from it? That's why, in the same spirit, we are just about to vote financial support to a research project in political sciences to understand the conditions that may explain this growing gap. With this kind of research works, we may find some keys in order to make our citizen participation policies more inclusive. This is another example of the kind of collaboration local authorities and universities can build together. I could talk longer about our current collaborations with the University of Bordeaux by evoking public policies in order to disseminate and share data, encourage exchanges and dialogue between the university and the economic ecosystems, enable experiments in our urban projects. But I would like to focus on the future, as we are now in a beginning momentum with this ENLIGHT project. Local authorities are facing today very important and complex challenges. We all know that it is at a local level that many challenges must be taken, such as for climate change and energy transition. Most of the solutions being under the responsibility of local authorities. Mobility systems, food models, urban planning, protection of the ecosystems, renewable energy production. We also must face divided society in addition with territorial fractures and migration movements, and inclusion is more than ever threatened. Those challenges suppose a prospective capacity, a constant adaptation, which needs reporting and defining impact indicators. It needs also a transversal approach and a good doses of innovation. For instance, in Bordeaux Metropole, being an attractive territory in France, it has generated some new problems, some new issues. How to face the demographic growth and find an appropriate balance between new housing and protection of our natural spaces and ecosystems, how to organize our energy supply and tackle our climate change commitments without exploiting other territories, how to plan a low carbon mobility strategy that doesn't leave people on the way. Combining equity, social justice, and meeting the climate targets is a really big challenge for local authorities. But this transition is absolutely necessary, especially in our region, which will be the most impacted in France by climate change. In this new page still to be written, local authorities and universities will have plenty of advantages to work closer together. From our point of view, from the local point of view, having access to expertise, lifelong learning, objective data, capacity to question current models and build new ones is probably a key asset in order to reach our targets. As for universities, encouraging practical cases for their students, finding new ways for funding and publishing research work, being part of the local decision-making process by providing knowledge bases, may have a meaningful impact on the societal challenges and may also empower learners as globally engaged citizens. So as you see, we are completely convinced that we can develop new partnerships between universities and local authorities in a win-win approach. The project of European universities aim at promoting European values, gathering a new generation of European citizens able to cooperate in an intercultural world, in different languages, and in an interdisciplinary approach. This is also the policy I'm willing to implement through my local responsibilities. So I'm very happy to see that encouraging steps have already been taken and that with the ENLIGHT project, we can go ahead together. Thank you.
Thank you, Céline. Really impressive presentation. There's so many things you mentioned that are so pertinent to all of the regions, all the cities and citizens as well. So we'll come back to those. I think that you've raised some really important and pragmatic points about how cities are growing and the challenges they face. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas and your activities that you are engaged with Bordeaux University and other institutions as well. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So just to stay in time, our next speaker is Mr. Christian Dahlmann. He's the head of external relations in the city of Uppsala. He's a political scientist with a master's degree in European affairs from the University of Lund, Sweden, and from Bordeaux in France. Previous work experience for Christian includes positions at Stockholm Region EU office in Brussels and at the International Department of the City of Stockholm. Christian, welcome. Thank you for making the time. Look forward to hearing your thoughts and your activities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to this interesting seminar. I'm honored to share the City of Uppsala's view on this topic, and it's also a privilege to be able to listen to all the presentations here. The City of Uppsala, we have a long tradition of cooperating on a European level with other cities, which has helped us a lot in our development. Now we are very excited to see what will happen if we join forces with our universities and cooperate on the European level. I think we can make great achievement and great developments when we do like we do here in the ENLIGHT project. First, let me just introduce the City of Uppsala a little bit. The City of Uppsala is, well, in a European context, perhaps a quite small city. We have today about 235,000 inhabitants. We're situated just north of Stockholm, so we're part of the greater Stockholm region. And it's a fast-growing city. We expect that our population will grow with about 35% until the year 2050. And in fact, we're about to build a mid-size Swedish city and integrate it into Uppsala in our plans for the development until the year 2050. We have high ambitions in the sustainable area. We're not only going to build a lot of new houses and housing areas. We want this to be the most sustainable housing area in Sweden and perhaps in Europe. So we're actively looking for corporations to see how to build sustainable housing areas, how to build it in sustainable, both in a social, ecological, and in an economical way. We are the growth here in Uppsala is very much related to our two universities. You're all already familiar with Uppsala University, but here in Uppsala we also have the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences based. These two universities, of course, they have a lot of students, but if we also include all professors, researchers, and other people employed by universities, they are a very large part of the city. The universities, they also affect the business sector here in Uppsala a lot. A lot of the companies based here in Uppsala are knowledge intensive. And that is, of course, due to the fact that they want to be close to the universities and close to the research carried out here. The business sector is growing quite fast. Well, at least before the pandemic, about 2,000 new jobs were created every year here in Uppsala. And of course, that is the driving engine to the population growth that we are experiencing here in the city. Here in Uppsala, we have a vision, and the vision is that we want to be a fossil fuel-free welfare city that is contributing to solutions on a global ecological recovery and well-being. That is, we not want to just be a sustainable city here in Uppsala, but we also want to contribute on a global level to do this together with other cities, regions, and nations to achieve this goal. When we have been looking at what do we want to be associated with by the year 2050, we have actually decided upon 4 priorities that is of most importance for the city. That is that by the year 2050, we want to be associated with to be a driving force for development and innovations. It's important for us to be an open and accessible city for everyone, open in that way that everyone should be included in the city, and accessible in that way that there should be no barriers for anyone living here in Uppsala. We want to be a place for the good life that should be easy to have access to quality of life here in Uppsala. That includes a large range of things, among other things, employment, for example. You should be able to find a job here in Uppsala, but you also have softer values that close to nature, good schools, good preschools, and so to say. So this is the place you want to go if you want to live a good life, so to say. And then the last one, which I will get back to later on in this presentation, is that we want to be associated with responsible and sustainable development. This is an issue that is very important for us, and we're working hard in this area. The city of Uppsala has been awarded for our work with sustainable development and climate change, perhaps foremost. The WWF awarded the city of Uppsala as the best climate city in the world 2018, and last year we were awarded on a national level as the best climate city in Sweden. But we are not settling in with these awards. We know that we need to work even harder if we want to achieve our goals. So we're not leaning back. We will actually try to work even harder. In numbers, we can say that the city of Uppsala, we want to be completely fossil fuel free by the year 2030. And then by the year 2050, the city should be a climate positive city. And we'll see. We have some more years to work, and we're not there yet, but we're working hard to get there. I have chosen 2 areas that I will talk a little bit more about, and those 2 areas are, of course, 2 ENLIGHT flagship areas. The first one is the climate change area. And here in Uppsala, we see that we expect 3 areas to be of more importance, or that they will increase in strength in the future. The first one is that we need to work harder with environmentally damaging emissions and the climate impact they cause. We have also identified, this is maybe perhaps as a consequence of the first one, that we have both extreme cases of extreme rainfall here in Uppsala that will increase in the future. Also increased risk of floods and extreme heat, which we have seen examples of in the last years, but it will be more often in the future. And I just want to share a little picture with you just to lighten up all the text in this slide. The faces have been blurred out here, so we can't identify them, but this is actually a picture from the central station in Uppsala, summer 2018. It was an extremely warm summer, and when August came, we have huge rainfalls, and actually the whole central station area was flooded. The stairs you see here in the pictures are actually the stairs going up to the tracks where you had the trains, and the whole station had to be closed down due to the risk of being electrified due to the water. And as I said, it was a warm summer, so the citizens of Uppsala, they had their beach toys nearby, and actually they didn't use them on the beach this day, they used them in the central station, which was completely flooded. And here we saw that we need to work hard to both prevent this from happening, but also reduce the risk of having these heavy rainfalls. Priorities for us in the city of Uppsala, of course, they are linked to the three areas above. We need to work hard to significantly and rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We need to integrate environmental and climate perspective for circular economy. The ecosystem services are of great importance for us. We need to work harder to protect and develop them. And then, as the picture showed recently, we need to work with climate adaptation with preventive measures. In the best world, we wouldn't have to work with the last one, but this is just a fact, and here we are, and we need to handle this in one or another way. I'm not going to go through all these texts a little bit too much, but this is just some example of action that we are taking in the city of Uppsala to do this. Just to mention a few examples, for example, up today we have now that the Uppsala heating energy comes from renewable energy sources or is produced in a climate neutral way. We have a new district power plant here that will be inaugurated shortly, and has helped us a lot to reach this goal. Our own fleet is, of course, fossil fuel free by the year 2023. Otherwise, we will never be able to reach our goals by 2030. We need to be more energy efficient. We want to reduce or increase our energy efficiency by 25%. We reached that last year, actually. And then perhaps one more example that I should mention is the last one here. Since we're going to build a lot here in Uppsala in the coming years, we have high ambitions here on how to build new houses, offices, and so on. By the year 2030, half of the completed structural volume shall be of wood, and the climate impact from concrete, and that is we're going to use a lot of concrete in the coming years, and that should be at least lowered by at least 50% by the year 2030 compared to 2017. So just an example of how do we cooperate with academia and Uppsala University in this case already now. We want to increase this cooperation, otherwise we will never be able to reach our goals, but just one example on how we cooperate at the moment. And the example is the Uppsala Climate Protocol. And this is a local climate agreement between the private and the public sector here in Uppsala. We can say that this is some kind of a local Paris agreement where different actors here in Uppsala have signed up to a local protocol. And this is actually a great example on how we can work together to reduce climate emissions. Today we have about 42 members coming from private companies, public agencies, universities, and different associations. And these members, they cooperate on how can we together reduce our climate emissions. We share best practice, we put up common goals, we learn from each other, we help each other, and Up to today, actually, we have seen a significant decrease in the climate emissions among the members. And we also see quite rapidly increase in energy saving activities. So just by putting up common goals, learning from each other, helping each other, we have actually been able to reduce our emissions among our members. And now we're trying to have more members join the climate protocol, so it will be even more efficient. And Uppsala University, they play an important role in this climate protocol, both as members, as they are reducing their emissions, but also with the knowledge that we have at Uppsala University, which helps all the members to reduce their emissions. If we look at the second area that I've chosen is equity, and this is an area that has great importance for us as well. Uppsala today is a city that is doing well. We are an economically prosperous city. We have among our citizens a very high level of education. We have among the lowest unemployment rates in the country here in Sweden. And the people here in Uppsala, they are in general good health. But as there's always about, the polarization in the city is increasing. We have high increasing inequality in living conditions, and that's both between individuals, but also in between different residential areas. The income differences are growing, as are differences in employment and health. And then I don't know if this is the correct term in English, but the societal conversation, that is the dialogue in the city, it is increasingly characterized by personal opinion rather than fact-based conclusions. We have heard the term fake news a lot recently, but this is the dialogue in between the citizens in the city is getting harder, and it's very easily to attack another person verbally or in social media. And we need to have a better dialogue both between individuals, but also between organizations in the city. We have a good position, as I mentioned before, but we need to break this development in order to keep this good position. Important for us is that among the citizens in Uppsala, we need to strengthen the belief in the future and increase the sense of belonging in the city. We need to everyone is an individual, so to say, but they also belong to a society, and we need to strengthen that. The segregation need to be counteracted, especially the socioeconomic segregation. And as many countries in Europe, we had large inflows of immigrants around the year 2015. Now we need to work harder to integrate these people, to find jobs for them, and to be part of the society as well. And then we need to work hard to meet and manage opinion polarization here in Uppsala as well. And here we have an interesting example of how we cooperate with Uppsala University in this area. We have a project that we call the Urban Lab. And now another slide with a lot of text coming up, but I'm just going to give you a few examples of what we do in this Urban Lab. The purpose of this initiative is to create research related to cities and the urbanization process, let's say. And some questions that we try to answer in this project is that, for example, what explains the migration process? What significance do local labor markets have? Why do some areas in the city see positive development while others deteriorate? How does urbanization affect economic inequality? And how does urbanization affect health of individuals? As you can see, there are more examples, but this is a quite new project. It started last year. And we are very much looking forward to follow this and to work closely together with Uppsala University with this, and perhaps also broaden it to other areas in order to get more knowledge on how to build a sustainable city in this matter as well. And that was the last slide of my presentation. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Christian. I'm just thinking Okay, sorry, really appreciate your conversation, your discussion. And I think it's really interesting to see, Christian, that the city of Uppsala has kind of almost agreed to be fossil free by 2030 and be climate positive by 2050. This is really ambitious and inspiring. And I also really liked when you mentioned that within the Uppsala region, you have this mini Paris Agreement with the different partners, which is also, again, very forward thinking. I think something that we can think about in different ENLIGHT region universities and regions as well, because it's really, again, going back to what Tomás was saying, and ENLIGHT has maintained is thinking globally, acting locally. So we need to act locally as well. Thank you, Christian, for your excellent presentation. Now, if I may invite our last panel speaker, Mr. Lilles, or Lilles. Sorry, I don't know quite how to pronounce the last name.
Yeah, it's Lilles.
Lilles. Thank you so much, Alo.
So it's again the let's say the Murphy's law that if something can go wrong, then it goes wrong. So you're not able to see a middle-aged man giving a presentation, but rather I'm letting my presentation do the talking. Hi, my name is Lilles. I'm the head of business development for the city of Tartu, and I will go through the examples of what we are doing here in Tartu. With half of the population in Tartu being under 35, with Tartu being a university city, and having 100,000 citizens, we are calling ourselves, or we are saying that it's a city with 100,000 startup-minded people, and then this is also due to the Estonians having the highest number of startup unicorns per capita. Also, we are a smart city since 1632. So this is the year the University of Tartu was founded in Estonia, and it's the university. It's one of the universities in top 300 of the QS World University rankings. But it's not only University of Tartu that we are having in the city. We have 11 higher education institutions altogether, with approximately 15,000 students. So we are a university city, and if you're looking at the economy or the different sectors, then 40% of the economy in Tartu is public sector. So universities, healthcare sector, knowledge institutions, etc. So there are a lot of different smart people, smart minds gathered in one place, where we can make things happen. Similar to the 5 focus areas of the ENLIGHT project, Smart City of Tartu relies on six pillars, and I think they're not the same as the ENLIGHT focus areas, but they incorporate all the things that the ENLIGHT focuses on, from governance to the people, and in a situation where many cities in the world are in arms race with technology to become a smart city, then Tartu has always focused towards people. And one thing that we don't want to compromise on is the things that we care about the most. So the greenery, the compactness, the safety, and the people who are living in the city. Maybe some examples about those 6 pillars. So for the governance part, Tartu is known for its participatory governance, for its participative budgeting, where we let the citizens of Tartu decide how the city should spend part of its budget on what activities. We're paperless city government. We are doing different things. Digital, or 99% of our services are digitalized, and then in 2021, our focus is to become even more more open or use data. So we are trying to introduce a CRM system in order to track the inquiries or the bottlenecks that the companies are having, and also to create monitoring tools and dashboards with data visualization for better decision making. Or let's say 2019 was one of the years that there were a lot of different initiatives being launched in Tartu, and then one of those initiatives was regarding mobility. So Tartu opened its smart bike sharing system with 750 bikes, and this is being organized by the city government. The fun facts here is that 2/3 of the 2/3 of the bikes are electric bikes, and it was not just a system we created. I think that the important thing was here that we used not also qualitative analysis or qualitative data, but also mobile positioning data in order to set the routes, set the charging talks for the bikes, and also for the bus transportation system. We used the data in order to track the routes of the people, where when they got off the buses, get to the buses, and to make this city more open and more usable for the citizens. And we're currently also working on some mobility as a service pilots. Next slide. Being a researcher, there is a quote from the academic literature that the regions that host the classical university seem to be conducive to technology-intensive startups, and the city name of Tartu perfectly fits into the word of startup. And half of the budget for the business development from the city goes to the incubation and startup activities, or support those things. And together with the University of Tartu, we are currently cooperating in different fields. So, for example, beginning of last year, we opened the Science to Business Launchpad program in order to help those technology and knowledge-intensive startups and university spin-offs to become more closer to the market. And what we are else doing is, together with the Institute of Computer Science, taking on activities regarding the update of digitalization, creating a digital innovation hub in Tartu, and so on. As Uppsala had really high, let's say, high ambitions regarding environment, and this is also something that Tartu has, and with the recent climate plan or climate strategy that we wrote, our aim is to be climate neutral by 2050, and the intermediate goal is to reduce CO2 emissions by 40% by 2030. So this is something in mind, and what we are also doing together with the University of Tartu is, first of all, we are cooperating with Delta Sandbox, which is a design thinking and digital product management program for master students, and we have done pilots in order to reduce the CO2 emissions in Tartu, and then just this week the city of Tartu and then University of Tartu started the project or European project Enlighten Me, and the idea is to track the correlation between health, well-being, indoor, outdoor lighting, and socioeconomic factors. But all those things are just things that need to be done or are being done, but it's about the living and the people in the city. So the last year we opened the city center for the people, and then created a thing called Car-Free Avenue in the middle of Tartu, and then the cooperation with the university here, for example, how to cooperate with the university or the scientists here, is that since the 2019 Metallica concert in Tartu, we are looking for and focusing on getting the impact of different events that we are doing in Tartu, and collecting the information about traffic, collecting the information about the number of people attending, about the card payments, and the information in a city is something that we are looking in order to look at the impact of different kind of events. But yeah, I think that the next three challenges for Tartu are the talents. So how to get them to Tartu, how to retain them here, how to provide them with meaningful jobs, the cooperation between, I think, all the partners of the quadruple helix, and then fresh ideas. So as the quote of Albert Einstein here, the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So you have to be innovative and work towards being more productive. And what's into the future? There are accelerator plans. So, for example, this year we are launching a pilot green tech accelerator, which is being initiated by the solar car project of the scientists from universities. We are a test bed for self-driving cars, buses, and drones, and also what we can learn and get from the university, and then where we can cooperate even better is the adoption of digital solutions, the crisis management part, of course, and of course looking at the recent trends and social entrepreneurship activities. So this is all from my side, and thank you.
Thank you, Ella. That's really impressive presentation. It's lovely to see the images of Tartu. It's amazing how a city like Tartu has become one of the leading examples of future smart cities. And I was also really impressed, which I didn't know, that around 50% of the population in Tartu is under 35 years old. So it looks like if I show up there, I'll be put in the geriatric home. but thank you so much. So I want to thank all the speakers for the excellent presentations, but just also, as Pamela has already mentioned, if any attendees who have any questions, they can put them in the Q&A board, and everybody can see it, and the panel members can respond to those if they are specific. If they're not, then we can take them as a general discussion. And also, if I may request the panel members to turn their videos on if possible, so the audience can see all of you. Thanks very much. Now, to begin with, there's a question from our colleague, Becky Way. She's the VP International in the University of Galway. And the question she's asking is that can the panelists discuss what first steps they would like ENLIGHT partners to take to build valuable, long-term and meaningful collaboration with and across their regional partners? Now, that's a really important question. That's the whole kind of premise of why we're doing some of these things. So I open it to our colleagues on the panel. So that will help us actually and guide us in how we can build relationships with the regional partners as well.
Well, Lokesh, if you prefer, I can go first on that, perhaps.
Sure, please.
And just to give you an answer, and thanks, Becky, for the question. I think that is a key challenge, and one of the things I touched on in my presentation was awareness raising. So I think the first step is that people are aware of the work that's being done. I don't think it's necessary that they're aware of the ENLIGHT project. I think it can be associated with the ENLIGHT project. But I think where you can capture the imagination, and even looking at some of the ideas from other cities, I think where something captures the public imagination, and very often it doesn't need to be a project of scale, but it can be something that people can immediately associate with. And I think it's very important to have momentum like these, and then to build other relationships from that. So I think one of the challenges that we have found in terms of developing regional initiatives or international initiatives, and we're involved with a number of EU projects, is explaining the concept before there's something tangible. So very often when these partnerships are formed, those that are in the room are fully aware of the concept and what aspects of it will work. And that can be very difficult to explain to communities, because communities sometimes don't see the reason behind it. But where there is a good idea, or where there is something that, you know, I noticed there in Tartu, the mobility as a service, that's something that we're looking at, that not many people will understand what mobility as a service means. But if they can identify shared vehicles that make their lives easier, and perhaps avoid them having to use their car as much, or maybe not even need a car at all, then that's something that immediately they will see a benefit in. And I think then afterwards we can say, well, ENLIGHT was the project that made that happen. But I think the most important thing is to capture the public imagination with one or two small projects that then we can share afterwards.
Thank you, Tomás. Céline, would you like to say something in response to this?
Yes, I agree with what has just been said. I think it's important to have concrete examples of how this cooperation can help us building new policies. I think for citizens, it's important also to have the reality of what's behind this ambition. And I would like also maybe to focus on another thing I think it's important, is maybe to share and communicate about all the expertise present in this consortium. For example, we talked just when we prepared this discussion, we talked together, and you told me about expertise of the Basque Country University in impact indicators. And these kind of things we didn't really we didn't know that it was existing. And for us as public institutions, we are very interested in this kind of knowledge in order to maybe create new partnerships.
Thank you, Céline. That's really valuable. Christian, would you like to add something?
Well, can you say that? I mean, we have heard that there are many good examples from all regions and cities that we heard from today, and I think just by listening to each other and learning from each other, we can see a great example on how to cooperate between regions, cities, and universities, and that can help us to establish more cooperations in respective city or region with our university, so to say. So just by having a dialogue and learning from each other, that will actually help us to deepen the cooperation between, in my case, the city of Uppsala and Uppsala University.
Thank you, Christian. Alo?
Yeah, I also think that the examples presented here today are really good. I think there are some things that maybe I would like to emphasize in case of Tartu, that and I think they also apply to other cities. Is if you have something concrete, or you have a one single focus to collaborate with, then the collaboration is still between people, not organizations, and it's easier to do those things. And in case of let's say Startup Day, which is a huge success, and which is a biggest early stage startup festival in the Baltic states, the idea was that we are doing it together, we are organizing it together, and we are thus cooperating together. And from those kind of things, you can learn the inside life of different organizations, and then you build on developing different projects and different initiatives on such example projects.
Thank you, Alo. That's really very valuable. So I'm just reading the questions here, but I think before I go into some of those, because some are very specific, and some very perhaps will take longer to address them. But one of the questions raised by my colleague from the Basque Country University, Igor Campillo, is Igor and we work together, and the team in ENLIGHT project, and really I think it's a reflection, not a question. Is one of the key components of ENLIGHT project is to develop what we call regional academies. And regional academies, really, it's an interesting concept. Is a lot of European research projects work within the universities, but what we're trying to develop is an intersection of the universities and the cities and the regions. And each university is developing a regional academy. And then what we're discussing today is really the first event of the members of regional academies. And then this will spread then like a wave does in water to European academies. So there could be a pan-European discussion among the 9 member cities, regions, universities, and that can be broadened with other networks as well. And we can then bring to a kind of a global dialogue. I think the important thing is, and what I'm seeing is, as even we only had time for 4 panel members. We could have had perhaps a representative from every university, that where Tomás discussed the challenges of, in some ways, creating right environment, right place for people to work anywhere in the country, including the western region of the country. So we don't have to work in a bigger city all the time. We create an environment where we work in a place which maybe is sparsely populated, and there are challenges and there are advantages as well. On the other hand, Céline discussed a kind of somewhat of a different challenge, where it's one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in Europe, and also the one that's being affected or will be affected by climate change. So I think it's good to see that kind of almost spectrum of challenges that both Tomás and Céline discussed, and Christian focused rightly on the climate change, the impact climate change is having on Uppsala, but also other cities in Europe. But it's a very forward-thinking plan that Christian shared about being fossil-free, climate positive, and all those things. And Tartu, Alo talked about how a city like Tartu is being very, very smart in creating a smart city, basically. And so I think that's really good to hear from, even as Christian mentioned, that it's not, it's really good to get the representatives of the cities and regions together so we can share ideas, because as I have discussed with my colleagues, with all 4 of you, And it's really exciting to see that the need for 4 of you to talk together, and the need for the 9 of you to talk together, and need for that group to grow, because we can all work in our own little areas and maybe challenges that we have. But the advantage of European University Network and ENLIGHT is that we don't have to recreate the wheel every time. You don't have to make the wheel. You can learn from each other, etc. So I think that's really fascinating. So I think what I would like to maybe ask you, first of all, if you see any questions that you want to answer right away, please go ahead. But also your view of how the cities and regions can work together, where universities can help you. So as Tomás, you mentioned, awareness is important, and working, and Céline, you mentioned that some concrete examples are important, and all those things. And we can certainly learn from you, and we'll work on those. But I think from when you go back to your offices, what is it that you would like to do where we could help you?
I can start with this one. And I think that, as we've seen from the presentations, we're more or less facing the same challenges in the cities and the regions. And there are great research being carried out in all the universities related to these challenges in these areas. And what we can do within ENLIGHT, as I see it, is to how do we work to make them meet, so to say? How do we work with living labs? How do we create innovations together between the cities, regions, and the universities? How do we, for example, use test beds and so on that will advance the research at the universities? And these test beds will help us when we try to build sustainable communities, cities, and region. And how do we work with different work methods do we have in these different ENLIGHT regions to obtain this? And how do we work, and how can we work together to develop it even further? I think that's a very interesting question that we can look closer into and cooperate within this ENLIGHT project.
Thank you, Christian. Céline, please.
Yes, I would like to add something about maybe one limit that we are observing now, and that I would like to improve, thanks maybe to the ENLIGHT project, is sometimes the difficulty for the two worlds, I mean the university world and local authorities world, to understand each other. Of course, we have different temporalities, and for local leaders, usually we are looking for some short-term results. But at the same time, we need each other for the development of course, of university, but also for in order to have perspectives, to have data, and to implement policies that are really effective, efficient. We need to work together. So I think, at least in Bordeaux, we are trying to develop a strategy that tries to mix a little more those two worlds, to make them meet, for example, by including researchers inside the public administration during their career. I think it's important also to have this point of view inside the public administration, by also including researchers and teachers from the university in participatory institutions, in order to have also their point of view, and they can also help other citizens in order to build a vision, at least from the academic point of view. So it's some examples, but I think it's important to make them meet in many different institutions in order to really understand each other better.
Thank you, Céline. Tomás, you want to share something? Or
yes, I think just drawing on something that Christian mentioned in the terms of, first of all, I think that the living lab idea is something that immediately we would be very interested in, because, as I mentioned to you, Lokesh, it's timely. It's something that we are looking at. But on the broader issue that Christian mentioned about the rise of disinformation, I think it's important that where both local authorities and universities work together, that it brings credibility to projects. I think a challenge for us is that where good ideas, whether it's something like mobility as a service, is brought to people, sometimes there can be a fear and how to manage the whole issue about ensuring that people understand how their data is being shared, why it's being shared, what use it's being put to, and to ensure that that transparency is there from the start. And when we've looked at this work over the last number of years, one of the things that has come up, and all of us as European partners will be aware of the importance of GDPR, but GDPR is very often used as a reason not to do things. And I think if you, we're very familiar with the medical device area in Galway and in the west of Ireland. And one of the things that we've learned is that accreditation, when you go through the FDA process, is a very powerful tool in your armory. So if you become accredited, it's very powerful. And I think there's an opportunity to do the same with GDPR, not to use GDPR as a reason not to do things, but to take GDPR as a first step. So to ensure that you become GDPR accredited and that people are comfortable with sharing their data. And I think not only within Europe, putting GDPR first rather than an afterthought gives a competitive advantage. I think at a global level, given that GDPR effectively has set the bar higher than anywhere else, that this can become a global advantage for our communities to understand how to manage people's data in a safe way. And then everything we're talking about in terms of smart cities, in terms of learning and gathering information and research, it makes all of that far more usable. And it's doing it with the consent of people. And then it should reduce the fear, because I think that's something that I'm very conscious of, where we always seek to work with the communities that put their hand up. Because sometimes if you go to a community, even if you're trying to help them, they feel that you're forcing things on them. So where we can identify communities that are willing to try new things, I think working with the university and working with other EU partners strengthens that credibility and avoids a situation where disinformation takes over, and that threatens the work that we all do.
Thank you, Tomás. Ella, would you like to add something to this topic?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at as for example Tartu examples regarding the test beds, there's a lot of different knowledge coming out of the universities. There are a lot of bright minds, and it's not only about technology or mobility, right? Self-driving cars, data analysis, but also some other things like this analyzing the lighting, indoor and outdoor lighting project, or cooperating with the University of Tartu's neuromarketing lab on how the citizens look at things, and what's the, let's say, user experience of the citizens. So there's a lot of different possibilities where we could work together, and this could be the thing or the point where different researchers can bring their research closer to market, to test their solutions in the city environment, and see what they have to tweak in order to scale those technologies, those products, those services, and so on.
Thank you, Alo. And I think it's really important, maybe, that I think what all four of you have said is that there is huge benefit in the local authorities and universities to work together. It's mutually beneficial. It brings, I think, credible, meaningful contribution from both to the society. But as Christian mentioned, that we also need to make sure that we connect the dots, because there's so much going on, whether it's the city labs, the living labs, the hubs, all those different things, that we don't get distracted by all these different names and activities, that we need to somehow have almost an umbrella where we can bring these networks together, so there's synergy among them. So that's important. Thank you. There's a question here from Galway, the president of Galway Chamber here, JP Gilmartin, and all the panelists can see the questions here. So he says they're creating strategic alignment between key stakeholders on a shared ambition and vision for cities and regions is central to success. Can the panelists speak to the fora or governance structures that have worked well to deliver on key projects?
I can just give one example. Since 2014, we have a strategic partnership between the city of Uppsala and Uppsala University, signed by the mayor and the vice chancellor of Uppsala University. Here we outline the most important areas of cooperation between the city and universities, what we want to achieve, and what different work methods we use in our cooperation. And this agreement or strategic partnership has actually helped us. First of all, it's a signal that says that the city and the university, we recognize each other as important for us, but also that we are important for the development of the whole region. And that gives a signal both to the people working in the city and the people working with university that it's important to cooperate between the university and the city, and we have a lot to learn from each other. So this agreement might only be a piece of paper, but the signal it sends out is far more important than the agreement itself.
Thank you, Christian. Any other examples?
Yeah, Lokesh, I might just answer briefly on that. And thanks, JP, for the question. I know this is an issue that JP and I have discussed on a number of occasions. And I think to summarize my view, I think it's important to get the balance right. Any of these projects require an amount of work to make them happen. And one of the particular issues that we've found, particularly in dealing with such situations in Ireland, is to avoid putting all the work into building the governance, and that leaves very few resources or very little time to actually carry out the work of the project. Because one of the challenges that we face here is quite a disparate group of stakeholders. So there are many stakeholders that we need to align. So the approach that we have taken, and over the last number of years, we've begun to amend our approach and change our approach to do this, is to find an existing structure and work within that structure. Because we think that where this can become additional work that's undertaken by an existing governance structure, that's a much more effective use of time, and it allows you to concentrate on the project outputs. And it also speeds up the process. It doesn't, particularly the governance arrangements, tend to take time to put in place. And you can lose maybe a year of valuable time in putting the governance arrangements in place. That is not to take from the fact that there have to be absolutely governance arrangements that will stand up, that are appropriate, that oversee the work that's being done. But the recommendation from our point of view and our experience has been to try and identify existing governance structures that these projects can happen under, because it's a much more effective use of time.
Thank you, Tomás. JP, maybe we can take this separately. I think this is an interesting question, because what we could perhaps do is look at the question here and then reach out to our partner institutions and their regional authorities to see if there are other examples that we can follow and learn from each other as well. So thanks so much. Now, there is a question here, I think, Tomás, yourself, from Louise Harnander, and I think she's wondering about the office hubs in Ireland. How do they work?
Well, thank you, Louise, for the question. So over the next couple of weeks, what we have done is we have put a common infrastructure, IT infrastructure in place. So as a state agency, we haven't taken ownership of the hubs. We're providing a platform where they can come together and they can find the opportunity to work together on ideas. So all of these hubs have developed organically. So they have developed in towns and in villages, and they were something that came to our notice. When we started the work over 2 years ago, we thought that there were maybe, let's say, 40 hubs on the Atlantic coast, and we discovered that there were 114. So this is a ground-up approach. We have very much found that the demand was there. And I think where this comes from is over the last 10 years, there has been a shift to remote working, and our agency has done work even beyond that time, back when it would have been called telework or various different other names, e-working. But the shift to remote work has three main drivers. It's driven, first of all, by the improvement in technology. So as you can see, we're all having this discussion this morning over Zoom, something that wouldn't have been possible a number of years ago. The shift to a low carbon economy, and in the research that we've done, one of the things that's been very clearly identified is the absence of a commute, not having to commute, and that's something that people place huge value on because it allows them to give time back, and that's very valuable to people to have extra time in their day. And then the third aspect, and the blockage up until 18 months ago, was the mindset. So in people's minds, they felt that this wouldn't work, and businesses said, we would like you, we are happy to let you try it, but it won't work. It's not the same as being in the office. And that has changed completely over the last year. So now everybody is much clearer on what where the examples of where remote work works well and where it doesn't. So just what we identified in our research was there are challenges from working from your own bedroom or your own kitchen or your own home. And these local hubs address those challenges. They mean that they reduce isolation because you go to a place of shared work with others. They improve motivation because people feel that they're leaving their house and going to a place of work, but they offer the benefits of having an infrastructure like broadband connectivity, appropriate office space, canteen facilities that people find of use. So what we seek to do is to take this organic grassroots movement that has happened and bring them together so that they can learn from each other. And we see it as a way both informing public policy and for examples like ENLIGHT, when we wish to roll out new public policies, that we can use this network to do it.
Thank you, Tomás. Very comprehensive and very meaningful. There is a question here actually from City of Ghent on the governance of living labs. And my, I guess, response would be that this is for Uppsala and Galway team that will work on that and will collect the information that we have on different cities and regions and their living lab governance. And we'll come back to you directly on that. We share with everybody else. I guess, look, the session was, it's almost a few minutes over time, but it's been very exciting. The time has flown by, but I really want to thank the panel of speakers. I want to thank the two presidents who shared their time. And I can say for myself that I've learned a lot during the last hour and a half from all of you, and look forward to working with not just the 4 colleagues here, but also other colleagues in our regions, but also the colleagues in the other partner regions in ENLIGHT forum. And as I was mentioned, I think by one of the panel members, is that maybe dialogue is very important. So one of the things that ENLIGHT could perhaps organize is facilitation of dialogues among regional partners of the university. So it doesn't become just once-off event. There is continuous dialogue and learning and sharing of ideas with that. So as you know, ENLIGHT is a really ambitious partnership, not just among universities, but also regional partners, city partners, which is very important to us to address societal challenges faced in the region and globally together in a way. Now, as Céline mentioned, the European University Network is about European values as well. So I think we need to create a sense of awareness of societal challenges, both local, European, and global, and work together proactively to find solutions. So as President hÓgartaigh mentioned, that this is also an adventure and we are all in it together. I think as European universities, European regions and partners, and by working together, we'll make it a successful journey for all of us. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time, your attention, your contribution, and wish you a very happy weekend, and we'll be in touch again. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.